Captain Jake Morrison stood in the conference room on Station Unity, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. His hands were sweaty. In 15 minutes, he would meet representatives from the Zenthari Empire for the first time. Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization, and he was one of the lead diplomats. The door opened with a soft hiss. Jake turned around and forgot how to breathe. She was tall, nearly 6 feet, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the station's light. Her eyes were large and golden, with vertical pupils like a cat. Her hair was long and white, flowing down her back like liquid silver. She wore formal robes in deep purple and gold, decorated with symbols Jake did not recognize. "I am Princess Valara of House Zenthar," she said. Her voice was musical, with an accent that made every word sound elegant. "I represent the Zenthari Empire in these negotiations." Jake managed to introduce himself without stumbling over his words. Barely. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. The Zenthari were formal and precise, following strict protocols for every interaction. They valued honor above all else, and their culture had rules for everything. Jake learned quickly that understanding these rules was the key to successful communication, but he also learned something else. When the official meetings ended and the other diplomats left, Valara would linger. She asked questions about Earth, about human culture, about Jake himself. She was curious in a way that seemed forbidden for someone of her position. Jake told her about Earth's oceans and mountains. He showed her recordings of human music and art. Valara listened with wonder in her golden eyes. "Your people feel things so openly," she said one evening. They were alone in the observation deck, watching Earth turn slowly below them. "We Zenthari are taught to control our emotions from childhood. To show feeling is considered weakness." "That sounds lonely," Jake said. Valara looked at him for a long moment. "It is." Something shifted between them that night. Jake could not name it, but he felt it like gravity pulling them together. The negotiations concluded successfully. Trade agreements were signed. Diplomatic channels were established. Jake expected Valara to return to her empire and never see her again. Instead, she requested permission to stay on Earth for an extended cultural exchange program. The request shocked everyone, including Jake. Zenthari royalty did not leave their homeworld for extended periods. It was unheard of, but Valara insisted, and her government reluctantly agreed. She moved into quarters near Jake's apartment. They began spending every free moment together. Jake showed her everything Earth had to offer. They walked through parks and ate at small restaurants. They went to concerts and museums. Valara experienced rain for the first time and laughed as water dripped down her face. "Your world is so alive," she told him. "So chaotic and beautiful. My people have order and tradition, but we have forgotten how to simply live." Jake fell in love with her somewhere between showing her how to eat pizza and teaching her to dance. He loved how she asked endless questions about everything. He loved how she smiled when she thought no one was watching. He loved the person she became when she was free from her people's expectations. Valara fell in love with Jake's kindness and his genuine nature. He never treated her like a princess or an alien. He treated her like a person. He made her laugh and made her feel safe enough to show emotions she had buried her entire life. 6 months after they met, Jake proposed. He did not have a traditional human ring or follow Zenthari protocols. He simply asked her, in his small apartment, if she would share her life with him. Valara said yes. The wedding caused an uproar on both worlds. Many humans questioned whether a relationship between species was appropriate. The Zenthari High Council was furious, viewing the marriage as a stain on their royal bloodline. They demanded Valara return home immediately and annul the union. Valara refused. The ceremony combined human and Zenthari traditions. Jake wore a formal suit. Valara wore both a white dress and her royal robes. They exchanged vows in both languages, promising to honor their differences while building something new together. They moved into a larger apartment in the diplomatic quarter. Valara continued her cultural exchange work, while Jake helped train the next generation of first contact specialists. They built a life together. learning to navigate the challenges of an interspecies marriage. Some things were difficult. Xanthari needed less sleep than humans. Their dietary needs were different. They processed emotions in completely opposite ways, but they worked through every problem with patience and love. Valara learned to cook human food, experimenting with recipes, and making Jake taste test everything. Jake learned Xanthari meditation techniques to understand how she processed stress. They created new traditions that belonged only to them. At night, they would lie together and talk about the future. About children who would be part of both their worlds. About the barriers they were breaking down, simply by loving each other. "My people think love is a weakness," Valara said one evening. Her head rested on Jake's chest as they watched Earth news together. "But I think it is the bravest thing we can do." Jake kissed the top of her head. "I think you are the bravest person I know." For 2 years, they were happy. But the pressure from the Xanthari High Council never stopped. Valara received daily messages demanding she return home. Her family was questioned about their loyalty. Other Xanthari royalty publicly denounced her choices. Valara tried to ignore it all. She told Jake they would face whatever came together. But one morning, Jake woke up alone. The bed beside him was cold. Valara's clothes were gone from the closet. Her personal items had vanished. There was no note, no message, no explanation. Jake called her communicator, but it was disconnected. He went to the Xanthari embassy, but they refused to speak with him. He contacted every diplomatic channel he could access, but every door was closed. Finally, an official statement arrived from the Xanthari government. Princess Valara had returned to her homeworld to fulfill her duties to her people. She had made her choice. She wished no further contact with Earth or its inhabitants. Jake did not believe it. He could not believe it. He tried for months to reach her, to understand what had happened. He filed requests and petitions. He called in every favor he had earned in the diplomatic corps, but the silence was absolute. It was as if Valara had never existed. As if their entire relationship had been erased. Jake's friends and family tried to help. His younger sister Amy moved in with him for a few weeks, worried he might do something desperate. His colleagues offered condolences and support. Slowly, painfully, Jake accepted the only explanation that made sense. Valara had chosen her duty over him. The cultural divide had been too great after all. Maybe the pressure from her people had become too much. Maybe she had never loved him as deeply as he loved her. Maybe he had simply been a phase for her. An exotic human experience she had tried and grown tired of. The thought broke something in Jake that never fully healed. He tried to move forward with his life, but part of him remained in that apartment, waiting for her to come home. He never understood why she left. He never got closure or answers. And he never stopped loving the woman who had abandoned him without a word. 5 years would pass before Jake learned the truth, and when that truth arrived, it would come riding at the head of an invasion fleet, with Earth's survival hanging in the balance. 5 years had passed, and Jake Morrison had learned to live with the empty space in his chest, where his heart used to be. He left the diplomatic corps 18 months after Valara disappeared. He could not face another Xanthari representative or sit through another negotiation about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Every reminder of that life felt like salt in a wound that refused to heal. Now he worked as a civilian advisor for Earth's Defense Coordination Office. He trained new officers in first contact protocols and alien cultural awareness. He taught them how to read body language across species, how to avoid accidental insults, how to build trust with beings who thought nothing like humans. He was good at his job. The pain had made him better at it. In a way, he understood now that relationships between species were fragile and complicated. He taught his students to hope for the best but prepare for disappointment. His apartment was small but comfortable. His younger sister Amy had moved in 2 years ago after her own divorce left her needing a fresh start. They split the rent and kept each other company. Amy worked as a nurse at the local hospital and had a talent for making Jake laugh even when he did not feel like it. "You are wearing the blue shirt again," Amy said one morning as Jake got ready for work. She was drinking coffee at their tiny kitchen table, still in her pajamas. "That is your sad shirt." "It is just a shirt," Jake said. "You wear it when you are thinking about her. It was her favorite color on you." Jake paused, looking down at the shirt. Amy was right, of course. She usually was. "I am fine," he said. "I know you are," Amy said gently. "But you are allowed to not be fine sometimes too." Jake kissed the top of her head as he grabbed his bag. "I will pick up dinner on my way home. Your turn to pick the movie." "Nothing with aliens," Amy called after him. Jake smiled despite himself. Deal. Earth had changed dramatically in the 5 years since first contact. The planet was now part of a larger galactic community, with trade relationships spanning dozens of alien civilizations. New technology flowed in constantly, improving everything from medicine to transportation. Alien tourists visited Earth to experience human culture, fascinated by human art and music and food. Humanity had proven themselves to be valuable partners. Human innovation and creativity impressed species that had become rigid in their thinking. Human emotional intelligence helped bridge gaps between other alien races that had struggled to communicate. Earth was becoming known as a world of problem solvers and mediators. But the Zenthari had pulled back. They maintained existing trade agreements, but sought no new relationships with Earth. Their embassy was staffed by low-level officials who followed protocol and nothing more. When asked about this distance, they gave vague answers about internal political matters. Intelligence reports suggested turmoil in the Zenthari Empire, but details were scarce. The Zenthari kept their internal affairs private, and no one wanted to push too hard and risk offending them. They were still one of the most powerful civilizations in known space. Jake tried not to think about Valara anymore. He had dated a few people over the years, but nothing serious developed. His friends worried he was closing himself off, but Jake told himself he was just being careful. The truth was that everyone he met fell short of the memory of a woman with golden eyes who had made him believe in impossible things. On a Tuesday evening, Amy dragged Jake to a bar near their apartment to celebrate her promotion to head nurse. She had been trying for months to get him to socialize more, and Jake had run out of excuses to avoid it. The bar was crowded and loud. Jake nursed a beer while Amy chatted with her coworkers. He was actually enjoying himself a little, watching Amy laugh and shine in her moment of success. Then every screen in the bar went dark. The emergency broadcast system override signal flashed across every television, every phone, every public display. The cheerful noise of the bar died instantly as everyone turned to look. "This is an emergency alert from the United Earth Defense Network," a calm voice announced. "All citizens are advised to remain calm and await further instructions." Jake's training kicked in immediately. Emergency broadcasts were rare and only used for genuine threats. His phone buzzed with an urgent message from his office. "Report immediately. Code red situation." "What is happening?" Amy asked, grabbing his arm. "I do not know," Jake said, "but I have to go." The broadcast continued as Jake pushed through the crowd toward the exit. "A large fleet of unknown origin has entered our solar system. The fleet is not responding to hails. Military forces are moving to intercept." Jake's heart was already racing as he ran to his car. His phone rang the moment he got inside. "Morrison, get to headquarters now," his supervisor said without preamble. "We have a situation. I am on my way." "What are we dealing with?" "I marred. Zenthari. A massive battle fleet. At least 50 capital ships. Maybe more. They jumped in near Mars and are heading straight for Earth. Jake. They have their weapons hot." Jake's blood turned to ice. "The Zenthari? That makes no sense. We have treaties. There has been no conflict." "I know, but they are not talking to us. They are just coming. And Jake, there is something else." His supervisor paused. "The fleet is being led by their flagship, the Ascendant Crown. That is the royal family's command ship." Jake drove faster, his mind racing. The Zenthari royal family did not leave their homeworld except for the most critical situations. This was not a routine military action. This was personal. Headquarters was chaos when he arrived. Analysts shouted over each other, pulling up tactical displays and running simulations. Military commanders coordinated with fleets in orbit. Civilian officials tried to manage the growing panic as news of the fleet spread across Earth. Jake was pulled into a briefing room where Admiral Lisa Chen stood over a holographic display of the solar system. The Zenthari fleet appeared as red dots moving steadily toward the blue dot that was Earth. "What do we know?" Jake asked. "Not much," Lisa said grimly. "They jumped in 4 hours ago. We have sent every diplomatic communication we can think of. Nothing. They just keep coming. Have they made any demands?" "Not yet. But we picked up a tight beam transmission they sent to the Global Council 20 minutes ago." Lisa pulled up a recording. "You need to see this." The display flickered, and a figure appeared. Jake's legs nearly gave out beneath him. It was Valara. She looked different. Older. Harder. Her white hair was pulled back in a severe military style. She wore black armor, marked with symbols of high command. Her golden eyes were cold and distant. Nothing like the warm woman he remembered, but it was her. After 5 years of silence, there she was, staring at him through a recording. "People of Earth," Valara said, her voice formal and emotionless. "I am High Marshal Valara of the Zenthari Imperial Fleet. Your world stands accused of violations against the natural order. You have corrupted sacred bloodlines and spread chaos throughout civilized space. The Zenthari Empire has passed judgment upon you." Jake could not breathe. This could not be real. "You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally," Valara continued. "Disarm your military forces. Submit to Zenthari authority. If you refuse, your world will be purified. There will be no negotiation. This is not a discussion. This is your only warning." The recording ended. The briefing room was silent. "Run it back," Jake said quietly. "The part where she talks about corrupted bloodlines." Lisa played it again. Jake watched Valara's face carefully. When she said the words, "corrupted sacred bloodlines," something flickered in her eyes. Just for a moment, barely noticeable unless you knew her like he did. "She is lying," Jake said. "What?" Lisa turned to him. "She is lying. Or at least not telling the whole truth. I know her. I knew her." Jake pointed at the screen. "Watch her eyes when she talks about corruption. She does not believe what she is saying. Morrison, I know this is personal for you. But we cannot make decisions based on your feelings about your ex-wife. This is not about feelings. This is about reading an alien you have studied for years." Jake paced the room, his mind working. The Zenthari do not lie outright. It violates their honor code. But they can shade the truth, speak in metaphors, say words they do not mean. She is being forced to deliver this message. Or she is performing for someone. Even if that is true, we still have a fleet in our orbit with enough firepower to glass the planet, Lisa said. "What do you suggest we do?" Jake stared at Valara's frozen image on the screen. The woman he had loved, the woman who had left him without explanation. Now she was here, leading an invasion. And something about the entire situation felt wrong. "Let me talk to her," Jake said. "Absolutely not. That is too dangerous. She came here herself. The High Marshal of their entire fleet. She could have sent anyone. But she came personally. Lisa, she wants me to see her. This whole thing is a message, or it is revenge. Maybe she blames you for whatever happened to her. Maybe." Jake looked at his former commander. "But if there is even a chance I can reach her, can understand what is really happening, we have to try. What other options do we have? Fight a battle we cannot win?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I will take it to the council. But Morrison, if you are wrong about this, you might be walking into a trap." "I know," Jake said. He looked back at the screen, at Valara's cold expression and distant eyes. "But I have to know why she left. And maybe the only way to save Earth is to find out." The Zenthari fleet hung in orbit like a constellation of death. 50 warships surrounded Earth, weapons powered and ready. Every hour that passed without communication made the situation more desperate. The United Earth Council argued through the night, Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender immediately. A few suggested evacuating as many people as possible to the outer colonies before the deadline expired. Admiral Lisa Chen presented Jake's proposal in a closed emergency session. Let him go to the flagship. Let him try to talk to Valara. It was a long shot, but Earth had run out of good options. The vote was close, but they approved the mission. Jake spent the next few hours preparing. He reviewed everything he knew about Zenthari protocols and military structure. He studied recent intelligence on their empire, looking for clues about what had happened in the 5 years since Valara left. The reports were fragmentary but disturbing. There had been a major political upheaval in the Zenthari government. The old High Council had been removed from power. Many traditional leaders had been executed or imprisoned. Someone new was in charge, but the details were unclear. And somehow, Valara had risen from disgraced princess to high marshal of the entire fleet. That kind of advancement did not happen peacefully. Amy found him in his office at 3 a.m. She had been calling him for hours, but he had been too busy to answer. "You are really going to do this?" she said. It was not a question. "I have to." "You do not have to do anything. Let someone else go. Send a professional negotiator who is not emotionally compromised." Jake turned to face his sister. She had been crying. That broke his heart more than anything else. "I am the only one who knows her," he said gently. "I am the only one who might be able to reach her. She left you, Jake. She broke your heart and disappeared for 5 years without a word. Now she shows up leading an invasion force. That is not the behavior of someone who cares about you. I know. So why are you doing this? Is it because you still love her? Because you are hoping for some fairy tale reunion?" Jake sat down heavily. "I am doing this because I am the best chance Earth has. And yes, part of me needs to know why she left. I have lived with that question for 5 years. If I am going to die, I want to die knowing the truth." Amy wiped her eyes. "You are not allowed to die. I just got the apartment the way I like it. Finding a new roommate would be annoying." Jake laughed despite everything. He hugged his sister tightly. "I will come back. I promise. Do not make promises you cannot keep." "When have I ever lied to you?" Amy pulled back and looked at him seriously. "Tell her that she does not get to hurt you again. Tell her that walking away from you was the biggest mistake of her life. And tell her that if she does anything to you, she will have to answer to me." "I will tell her," Jake said. "Though I think you are more terrifying than an entire invasion fleet." The shuttle left at dawn. Jake was the only passenger. The pilot was silent as they lifted off from Earth and headed toward the Zenthari flagship. Jake watched his home planet shrink behind them. He thought about all the people down there who were counting on him. Billions of lives hanging on his ability to talk to a woman who had abandoned him. The pressure should have crushed him. Instead, he felt oddly calm. For 5 years, he had been stuck in the past, unable to move forward, because he did not understand what had happened. Now he would finally get answers, even if those answers destroyed him. The Ascendant Crown was massive. It dwarfed every human ship in orbit, a city-sized vessel bristling with weapons and shields. Jake's shuttle was scanned 3 times before being granted permission to approach. "Good luck, sir," the pilot said as they docked. "Earth is counting on you." "No pressure," Jake said with a weak smile. The airlock opened. 6 Zenthari soldiers stood waiting, their weapons ready. They wore black armor that covered every inch of their bodies. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, making them look more like machines than living beings. "Captain Jake Morrison," one of them said. "You will come with us. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will not touch anything. Any deviation from these instructions will result in immediate termination." "Understood," Jake said. They searched him thoroughly, scanning for weapons, recording devices, anything that might pose a threat. They found nothing because he had brought nothing. He was unarmed and helpless, exactly as they wanted him. The soldiers led him through the ship's corridors. Jake tried to memorize the route, but after several turns and lifts, he was completely lost. The ship was enormous and maze-like by design. They passed other Zenthari crew members who stared at him with cold curiosity. Some whispered to each other. Jake caught a few words in their language. Human. Outsider. Contaminated. He tried to ignore the hatred in their eyes and focus on what he would say to Valara. Every rehearsed speech sounded wrong in his head. How do you talk to someone who was your entire world and then became a stranger? The soldiers stopped in front of a large door marked with royal symbols. One of them spoke into a communication device. The door opened silently. The High Marshal will see you now, the soldier said. You will show proper respect. You will address her by title only. Jake stepped through the door into a command chamber that took his breath away. The walls were transparent, showing a perfect view of space and Earth beyond. Holographic displays filled the air, showing tactical information and fleet positions. And standing at the center of it all, her back to him, was Valara. She wore black armor like her soldiers but more elaborate, marked with gold symbols of her rank. Her white hair was pulled back in a long braid that hung down to her waist. She stood perfectly still, looking at a display of Earth. The door closed behind Jake. He heard locks engage. They were alone. The silence stretched out. Jake waited, knowing better than to speak first in Zenthari formal settings. But his heart was pounding so hard, he thought she must hear it. Finally, Valara spoke without turning around. You should not have come. I had to, Jake said. You knew I would. I hoped you would be smarter. I hoped you had moved on and forgotten about me. I tried. It did not work. Valara's shoulders tensed slightly. Jake noticed her hands were gripping the edge of a console. You need to leave. Go back to Earth. Tell your leaders to surrender. I am not leaving until you explain, Jake said, letting anger creep into his voice. 5 years, Valara. 5 years without a word. I deserved better than that. You deserved better than me, she said quietly. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you will get. Jake stepped closer. Look at me. You owe me that much. I owe you nothing, Valara said, but her voice cracked slightly. I ended our marriage. I chose my duty over you. That is all you need to know. I do not believe you. What you believe does not matter. Then why am I here? Why did you come yourself instead of sending a subordinate? Why this whole dramatic ultimatum? Jake moved closer still. If you truly did not care, you would have just attacked. But you are stalling. You are waiting for something. What are you waiting for, Valara? Stop. Her voice was sharp now, commanding. Do not use that name. I am High Marshal of the Zenthari fleet. You will address me properly, or you will be removed. Fine. High Marshal. Jake spoke the title like a curse. Tell me why you left. Tell me why you are threatening to destroy my world. Tell me anything true, because I know you are lying about something. Valara spun around, and Jake finally saw her face. She looked older, like the weight of years had pressed down on her. Her golden eyes were harder, colder, but they were also wet with unshed tears. Zenthari almost never cried. It violated their cultural norms about emotional control. Seeing tears in Valara's eyes shocked Jake more than anything else. You want the truth? She asked, her voice rough. The truth will destroy you. It destroyed me. I am already destroyed. You did that 5 years ago. Something broke in Valara's expression. The cold mask slipped, and Jake saw pain underneath so deep it made his chest ache. She turned away from him, her hands shaking. I was pregnant, she said quietly. Jake's world stopped turning. What? The week before I left, I found out I was carrying your child. Our child. Half human, half Zenthari. A hybrid that should not exist. Jake could not breathe. Could not think. A child. They had talked about children so many times, dreamed about what they would be like. And she had been pregnant when she left. The High Council found out. Valara continued, her voice hollow. They gave me an ultimatum. Terminate the pregnancy and annul the marriage, or they would execute my entire family. My parents, my siblings, my young nieces and nephews. 27 people who had done nothing wrong except be related to me. Valara, Jake whispered. They also threatened Earth. They showed me invasion plans. They made me watch simulations of your cities burning. They said if I refused, if I tried to warn anyone, they would start a war and make sure the child never took a single breath. Valara's voice broke. I had 6 hours to decide. 6 hours to choose between everyone I loved. Jake's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, unable to process what he was hearing. All this time, he thought she had abandoned him. But she had been trying to save him. I left because I loved you, Valara said, turning to face him again. Tears ran freely down her face now. I left to keep you alive. I went back to the Zenthari homeworld and did what they demanded. I let them take our child. I agreed to everything they wanted. Why did you not tell me? Jake asked desperately. We could have fought them together. We could have found another way. There was no other way. And if I had told you, you would have tried to stop me. You would have died trying. So I left without saying goodbye. Because a clean break was the only chance you had at survival. I thought if I just disappeared, you would hate me and move on. I thought you would forget. I could never forget you, Jake said. I would have rather died fighting beside you than live without you. Valara closed her eyes. I know. That is why I could not tell you. Jake stood on shaking legs. He crossed the distance between them, wanting to hold her, wanting to comfort her. But he stopped himself. Too much had happened. Too much pain lay between them. The child, he said. What happened? Valara's face crumpled with grief. Gone. They made sure of it. And I had to pretend I did not care. I had to smile and thank them for correcting my mistake. I wanted to die, Jake, but I knew if I did, your death would follow. So you lived. For 5 years, you lived with this. I did more than live. I got angry. Valara's eyes hardened. I spent 5 years building alliances with everyone who hated the High Council. I rose through the military, earning honors and loyalty. And 3 months ago, I led a coup. I arrested the council. I exposed their crimes. Many of them are dead now, Jake understood suddenly. You took control of the empire. Yes, but it is fragile. Many traditional Zenthari see me as a traitor. Some of my generals wanted to invade Earth for real, to unite the empire against a common enemy. I could not stop them completely, so I came here instead. Jake stared at Valara, trying to understand what she was telling him. His mind felt like it was breaking into pieces. A child they had lost. 5 years of grief she had carried alone. A coup. An empire in chaos. If your generals wanted to invade Earth, why are we not at war already? He asked. Why? The ultimatum. Why wait? Oh, because this is not a real invasion, Valara said. She wiped the tears from her face with angry movements, as if furious at herself for showing weakness. This is theater. A performance for my military hardliners. I do not understand. Valara pulled up a holographic display. It showed political factions within the Zenthari Empire, color-coded by loyalty and power. My empire is fracturing. Traditional nobles want me dead for overthrowing the council. Religious extremists think I have corrupted our culture. Military leaders question whether a woman can rule effectively. I need to unite them behind something. Or, civil war is inevitable. So you threaten Earth to distract them? Jake said, feeling sick. No, I threaten Earth to satisfy them while preventing actual violence. Valara changed the display to show fleet movements. My aggressive generals wanted to invade and conquer. They think subduing a major human world would prove Zenthari superiority and rally the empire. I could not refuse their demands outright without losing control, so I agreed to lead the fleet myself. But you have no intention of attacking. Correct. The 48-hour deadline is meaningless. I am stalling while I consolidate power back home. I needed my fleet to look aggressive to satisfy the hardliners. But I came here to prevent war, not start one. Jake paced the command chamber, trying to think clearly despite the emotional storm inside him. What happens when the deadline passes and you do not attack? Your generals will know you were never serious. That is why I need your help, Valara said. Earth must appear to surrender. But the actual terms will be something else entirely. A mutual defense pact, disguised as submission, trade agreements that benefit both sides, wrapped in language of tribute and vassalage. You want us to fake a surrender so you can tell your people you won without actually invading. Yes, it protects Earth and gives me political stability I need. But it only works if both our peoples believe the deception. If anyone discovers this is staged, hardliners on both sides will use it against us. Jake stopped pacing and looked at her. You came all this way, brought an entire fleet, just to warn me. I came because I owed you the truth. I came because there are factions in my empire that I cannot control yet. Even with me in power, there will be attempts to destroy Earth. You need to be ready. You need to build defenses and form alliances. I can buy you time, but I cannot protect you forever. And you came because you needed to see me again, Jake said quietly. Valara looked away. That too. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Not the burning rage he expected, but something colder and deeper. You should have told me. 5 years ago, when the council threatened you, you should have trusted me. If I had told you, what would you have done? I would have fought for you. For us. For our child. You would have died, Valara said sharply. You and everyone you loved. The Zenthari military could have crushed Earth 5 years ago. You had no defenses, no allies, no way to stand against us. Your death would have accomplished nothing, except making me watch you die. So you made the choice for both of us, Jake said. You decided my life was worth more than the truth. You took away my ability to choose. Yes. Valara met his eyes. I took away your choice because I loved you too much to let you sacrifice yourself. Maybe that was selfish. Maybe that makes me a monster, but I would do it again. Jake wanted to yell at her. He wanted to rage about the 5 years of pain and confusion and emptiness, but looking at her face, seeing the grief and guilt written there, he realized something. She had suffered just as much as he had. Maybe more. I lost our child too, he said quietly. I never got to meet them, but I lost them. I lost the future we talked about. I lost you. And I had to live with thinking you had just decided I was not worth staying for. Jake, I am sorry. I am so sorry. Sorry does not fix this. Sorry does not give us back what we lost. I know. Valara's voice was barely a whisper. I know nothing can fix it. But I needed you to understand that leaving you was the hardest thing I have ever done. Every day for 5 years, I wanted to contact you. I wanted to explain, but I could not risk it until I had the power to protect you. They stood in silence. Two people who had loved each other completely and been torn apart by forces beyond their control. Jake did not know how to feel. Part of him wanted to forgive her immediately. Part of him wanted to hate her forever. Most of him just felt tired and broken. Tell me about the coup, he said finally. How did you go from disgraced princess to ruler of an empire? Valara seemed grateful for the change of subject. She pulled up more displays, showing him maps and timelines. I spent the first year just surviving. The council watched me constantly. I played the role of obedient princess, following every order, burying every emotion. I let them think they had broken me. But you were planning. I was learning. I studied military strategy and politics. I made connections with reformers who were tired of the council's corruption. The Zenthari Empire is thousands of years old, and the High Council had become bloated with power. They made enemies everywhere. Valara showed him footage of battles and political meetings. I volunteered for dangerous missions. I earned military honors. I became known as someone who followed duty above all else. And slowly, very slowly, I built a network of people who would follow me when the time came. When did you decide to overthrow them? The day they told me about another royal who tried to marry outside our species. They tortured him to death as an example. They laughed about it. Valara's jaw tightened. I realized they would never change. The only way to protect anyone was to remove them completely. She showed him footage of the coup. It had been swift and brutal. Valara's forces had moved simultaneously across 3 worlds, arresting council members and their supporters. Some had fought back and died, others had surrendered and faced trial. I executed 12 of them personally, Valara said, her voice flat. By Zenthari law, I had the right. They were guilty of treason, murder, and crimes against their own people. But I still see their faces when I close my eyes. Jake looked at this woman who had once laughed at his terrible jokes and cried at sentimental movies. She had become someone harder. Someone capable of killing. War and grief had changed her, just as they had changed him. Do you regret it? He asked. The coup? No. They deserved worse than they got. But I regret what I had to become to do it. I regret that the person you loved died 5 years ago. And this stranger is all that remains. You are not a stranger, Jake said. You are still Valara. You are just carrying more weight than anyone should have to carry. She looked at him with surprise. How can you not hate me? I spent 5 years hating you. It did not help. And now that I know the truth, I understand why you did what you did. I do not agree with it. I still think you should have trusted me, but I understand. So what happens now? Valara asked. Jake thought about Earth waiting below, about billions of people who needed him to succeed. He thought about Amy, and his friends, and everyone who would die if this went wrong. And he thought about the woman in front of him, who had sacrificed everything trying to protect him. Now we save both our worlds, he said. We create this fake surrender. We build the alliance you are talking about. We give Earth time to prepare for the real threats. It will not be easy. My enemies will look for any excuse to restart hostilities, and your people will hate appearing weak. Then we make it look like strength, Jake said. His mind was working now, falling into the familiar patterns of diplomacy and strategy. Not a surrender, but a strategic partnership. Earth gains access to Zenthari military technology and training. The Zenthari gain access to human innovation and resources. We frame it as mutual benefit. Valara nodded slowly. That could work. But we will need to make the initial announcement look like a defeat for Earth. My hardliners need to believe they won. And Earth needs to believe we negotiated from a position of strength, or the government will fall. This is going to require very careful wording. They worked through the night, drafting agreements and planning the public announcement. It felt strange to work beside her again, their minds falling into old patterns of cooperation. Despite everything that had happened, they still understood each other. As the first light of dawn began to show on Earth's horizon, visible through the command chamber's transparent walls, Valara paused in her work. Jake, I need to ask you something. What? When this is over, when Earth is safe, and my empire is stable, will you let me try to explain more? Will you give me a chance to tell you about the 5 years we lost? Jake looked at her. The woman he had loved. The woman who had broken his heart. The woman who had carried grief and guilt and responsibility that would have crushed most people. I do not know if we can ever go back to what we had, he said honestly. Too much has changed. Too much pain has passed. I know. I am not asking for that. I just want a chance to know you again. To let you know me as I am now. Not as lovers. Maybe just as friends who understand each other's scars. Jake thought about it for a long moment. Part of him wanted to say no, to protect himself from more pain. But another part remembered how it felt to have her in his life, even just as a friend and colleague. Friends, he said finally. We can try that. But Valara, if you lie to me again, if you hide things to protect me, we are done. I need the truth. Even when it hurts. I promise, she said. No more lies, no more secrets. Then we have a deal. Jake extended his hand. After a moment, Valara took it. Her skin was cool against his, familiar and foreign at the same time. Outside the command chamber, the Zenthari fleet waited. Below them, Earth held its breath. And between them, two people who had lost everything began the slow, painful work of building something new from the ruins. Jake's shuttle descended toward Earth as the 48-hour deadline approached. He carried encrypted files from Valara containing the truth about the Zenthari political situation and the proposed alliance terms. His hands shook slightly as he reviewed the materials one final time. Everything depended on convincing the United Earth Council to play along with the deception. If they refused, if they exposed the fake invasion, both worlds would face real war. Valara's hardline generals would revolt. Earth would be left defenseless. Millions would die. No pressure, Jake thought grimly. Amy was waiting at the landing pad when he arrived. She ran to him and hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. "You came back," she said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "I promised, did I not? You also promised to explain everything when you got back. So start talking." Jake told her a simplified version of the truth as they drove to the emergency council session. He could not share the classified details yet, but he told her about Valara's pregnancy, the council's ultimatum, the 5 years of grief. Amy cried. Then she got angry. Then she cried again. "I want to hate her for hurting you," she said finally. "But I cannot." What she went through, losing a child like that, being forced to choose, that is impossible. "I know," Jake said quietly. "Are you okay? Really okay?" "No, but I will be. Eventually." The council chamber was packed with representatives from every nation and military leaders from across Earth's defense network. Admiral Lisa Chen called the session to order and invited Jake to present his findings. Jake stood before the assembled leaders and told them everything. The room erupted into shouting halfway through his explanation. "This is insane," one general said. "You want us to fake a surrender? To look weak in front of the entire galaxy? The alternative is actual surrender or a war we cannot win," Jake replied calmly. "How do we know this is not a trap?" Another representative asked. "How do we know your ex-wife is not manipulating you?" Because the information checks out," Admiral Lisa said, standing to support Jake. "We have been monitoring increased instability in the Zenthari Empire for months. The timing matches her story. And frankly, if they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already. They have been sitting in orbit for 2 days, without firing a shot. But a fake surrender will make us look like cowards," someone else protested. "Read the actual treaty terms," Jake said, distributing the documents. "Yes, the public announcement will sound like we lost, but look at what we actually get. Advanced defensive technology, military training, access to their supply networks, political protection from other aggressive species. This is not surrender. This is the alliance we have been trying to negotiate with them for years, just wrapped in different language." The debate went on for hours. Jake answered questions, provided evidence, and made his case. Slowly, grudgingly, the council began to see the logic. Earth would survive. They would gain powerful protections. The cost was temporary embarrassment and pretending to submit to terms that actually benefited them. Finally, with less than 4 hours until the deadline, the vote was called. The motion passed by a narrow margin. "We are trusting you, Morrison," the council president said. "If you are wrong about this, Earth pays the price." "I know," Jake said. "I will not let you down." The public broadcast went out simultaneously to Earth and the Zenthari fleet. Valara appeared on every screen, her expression cold and commanding. She announced that Earth had wisely chosen submission over destruction. Humanity would now operate under Zenthari oversight, providing resources and accepting guidance in exchange for protection and technological assistance. Jake watched the announcement with Admiral Lisa and her senior staff. The language was carefully crafted to sound like conquest to the Zenthari, while actually describing a mutual partnership. But the optics were bad. People on Earth were already protesting, angry at what appeared to be surrender. "This is going to be a public relations nightmare," Lisa said. "Better than the alternative," Jake replied. Over the next 3 weeks, The actual terms of the treaty were quietly published. As people read the fine print, anger began to shift to cautious relief. Yes, the announcement had sounded like defeat, but the reality was that Earth had gained a powerful ally and access to technology that would take decades to develop on their own. Humanity maintained complete sovereignty. They controlled their own government and military. The oversight mentioned in the surrender was actually a joint advisory council where Earth and Zenthari representatives worked as equals. The resources Earth provided were trade goods they were already selling. It was brilliant politics disguised as submission. Jake worked with Valara's diplomatic team to implement the treaty. They set up communication networks, planned technology transfers, and established protocols for the new partnership. It meant long days and longer nights, but Earth's defenses grew stronger by the day. He saw Valara frequently during this period. Always professional, always formal, surrounded by staff and advisors, but sometimes their eyes would meet across a conference room, and Jake would see the woman he had loved beneath the armor of her title. They did not talk about personal things. There was no time and no privacy, but there was a connection between them, fragile and tentative, like a bridge slowly being rebuilt from broken pieces. One evening, after a particularly difficult negotiation session, Valara asked Jake to walk with her through the observation deck of the orbital station where they were working. Her guards stayed at a discreet distance, giving them the illusion of privacy. "How is your sister?" Valara asked. It was the first personal question she had asked in weeks. "She is good, worried about me, as always. She wants to meet you, actually. To tell you personally that if you hurt me again, she will find a way to hurt you back." Valara smiled slightly. "I remember you talking about her. She sounds formidable." "She is." They walked in silence for a while, looking at Earth turning slowly below them. The planet looked peaceful from up here. Though Jake knew the political situation was still tense. Many people were angry about the treaty, but they were alive, and that was what mattered. "I have to return to the Zenthari homeworld soon," Valara said quietly. "There are factions still trying to undermine my rule. I need to handle them personally." Jake's chest tightened. "When?" 3 days. "I have delayed as long as I can, but my advisors are insistent. Will you come back?" "If I can. The political situation is unstable. I cannot make promises about the future." Jake stopped walking and turned to face her. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Always," Valara said. "Do you regret any of it? The marriage, the love, all of it. If you could go back and choose differently, would you?" Valara looked at him for a long moment. Her golden eyes were sad but clear. "I regret how it ended. I regret the pain we both suffered. I regret that our child never had a chance to exist. But the 2 years we had together, before everything fell apart, those were the happiest years of my life. I would not trade that time for anything, even knowing how much it would hurt later. Loving you was worth the pain. It was worth everything." Jake felt something loosen in his chest. For 5 years, he had wondered if what they had was real, or just a fantasy he had built up in his memory. Hearing her confirm that it had been real, that it had mattered, helped somehow. "I am not ready to forgive you completely," he said honestly. "Part of me is still angry that you did not trust me enough to let me help 5 years ago, but I understand why you made the choice you did, and I am glad you are alive, even if it meant losing what we had." "That is more than I deserve," Valara said. "Maybe. But I am not doing this for what you deserve. I am doing it because holding on to anger was destroying me. I want to move forward, even if that path is uncertain." They stood together in silence, watching Earth. Two people who had loved and lost, and found each other again in the most unexpected way. The future was unclear. Valara had an empire to stabilize. Jake had a world to protect. There were enemies still plotting against them, hardliners on both sides, who wanted war instead of peace, but there was also possibility. The chance to rebuild trust slowly, carefully, without the naive optimism of their first relationship but with something stronger. Understanding. Respect. The knowledge that love alone was not enough, but it was still worth fighting for. "Stay safe," Jake said finally. "Do what you need to do on your homeworld. But Valara, if things get bad, if you need help, contact me. No more facing everything alone." "I will," she promised. "And Jake, thank you for giving me a chance to explain, for not hating me, for helping save both our worlds." "We saved them together," Jake said, "like we should have done the first time." Valara reached out slowly and took his hand. Her skin was cool, her grip gentle. "When I return, if I return, perhaps we could try being friends. Real friends. Not just diplomatic colleagues. We could learn to know each other again." "I would like that," Jake said. "Take your time. Fight your battles. And when you are ready, you know where to find me." They stood hand in hand for a few more moments, two people suspended between past and future. Then Valara's communicator chimed, calling her back to duty. She squeezed Jake's hand once and let go. "Goodbye, Jake Morrison. For now." "Goodbye, Valara. Be safe." She walked away, surrounded by her guards, the High Marshal of the Zenthari fleet, ruler of an empire, wearing the weight of her responsibilities like armor. But just before she left the observation deck, she looked back. For just a moment, the armor fell away, and Jake saw the woman he had loved, still there beneath everything. Then she was gone. Jake stood alone, looking at Earth. His home. The world he had helped save through diplomacy and painful honesty. He thought about Amy waiting for him down there, about his job training the next generation of first contact specialists, about the life he had built from the ruins of his broken heart. He thought about Valara, returning to her empire to face enemies and political intrigue. He hoped she would survive. He hoped she would win. And he hoped that someday, when the fighting was over and the dust had settled, she would come back, not as his wife, maybe not even as his lover, but as someone who understood him, who had shared his greatest joy and his deepest pain, someone who had made terrible choices trying to protect him and was now trying to make better ones. The future was uncertain. There would be more challenges ahead. Earth still faced threats from Valara's enemies. The political situation remained fragile. Nothing was guaranteed, but Jake had learned something in the past 5 years. Life was not about guarantees. It was about showing up, even when it hurt. It was about choosing hope over despair, connection over isolation, forgiveness over revenge. He had loved an alien princess. He had lost her and found her again. He had learned the truth behind her disappearance and chosen understanding over anger. Now, he would wait and see what came next. Ready for whatever the universe decided to throw at him. Stronger for having survived the breaking and the rebuilding. Behind him, a new day was dawning on Earth. Literally and figuratively. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a woman with golden eyes was flying toward her own uncertain future, carrying the memory of a human who had given her something impossible. A second chance. The story was not over. It was just beginning again. Different this time, but no less real. And that, Jake decided as he left the observation deck, was enough.